What's up, brand builder? Stephen Hurahan here at BrandMasterAcademy.com, and in this video you're going to learn how to name your brand effectively in 7 simple steps so you can help your audience to not just remember your brand, but to remember why your brand is so different from your competitors. Now, if you're new to the channel and you want actionable brand strategy, tips and techniques to grow your business, then hit that subscribe button and the notification bell and you'll be well on your way. Now, as people, we start naming things from a very young age. If you think about it, as toddlers, we start naming our toys, our teddy bears, our first blankie, or our first pet. And then as we get older, when we get into our teenage years, we'll start giving our friends nicknames. We might name our first car, and then as we become adults, we'll start naming our children. And then after all of that, we start to name our businesses. Now, this is the experience that most of us have with naming something, and that basically means that any business owner naming their business for the first time is naming their business from a point of experience of sentimentality. Now, don't get me wrong, it is very, very important that any business owner is connected to the business and the brand that they're building, that they have an emotional connection to that business and they believe in that business. But if you make business decisions or branding decisions based off emotion, well, then your brand is destined to fail. And that's exactly what the naming of your business and your brand is. It is a strategic decision. You see, your brand strategy and your entire brand aims to influence the minds of your audience as to why your brand should be remembered, as to what position your brand is taking in the marketplace. And if your brand name doesn't align with what that position is, then it's a missed opportunity to help solidify that position. So if you're building your own brand and you've named that brand, it's time to be objective. If you're speaking with a client and they've named their brand, it's time to offer some advice. But in both cases, you can follow this simple 7-step process to make sure that the name that you select for your brand is aligned to the position that you want to own in the mind of your audience and helps them to understand and remember why they should remember your brand. Step number 1, know your audience. Now, when you name your favorite toy or your dog or your cat or your car, you're naming that for you. But when it comes to your business, you're not naming your business. You're not naming your brand for you. You're naming your brand for your audience because it's your audience that you're trying to appeal to. It's your audience's mind that you're trying to influence. So make sure you know who that audience is. Make sure you know what they want before you go deciding what your brand name should be. Step number 2, know your position. So once you know your audience and you know what they want, then you've got a good basis for defining your position. And essentially your position is how you're going to appeal to your audience, what you're going to tell them that'll make them think, yeah, this brand is different. This brand offers value. This brand is different to everything else out there in the marketplace. And this is the reason I should remember this brand. So be really clear on what position you're trying to own in the mind of your audience, because this will form the foundation of what your brand name should be based on. Step number 3, gather positional keywords. So once you've defined that position that you want to own in the mind of your audience, then think of all the related words got to do with that position. Think of all the associated words, all of the synonyms that could be related to that position, and gather all of those up. If you can name your brand forged from the words that defines the position that you're trying to own, well, that is the basis for a really strong name. Step number 4, merge, morph, and make believe. So essentially what this means is get creative with all of those keywords that you've gathered. Now, sometimes a name will jump out at you pretty quickly when you have all of those keywords sitting in front of you, but that's not always the case. Sometimes you could be sitting there hours, sometimes you could be sitting there days, but really take the time to go through each one of those keywords and see what you can pull out of it. See if you can dissect those keywords, merge with other keywords, change the spelling, change the meaning, use analogies or metaphors or cliches, and really take the time to come up with a unique brand name. Step number 5, quality selection. So if you've really exhausted the last step, well, then you should have upwards of 50 names. Now, some of those might just be off-the-cuff names that you don't really feel are going to hold any weight, but you want to push that as much as possible. The more names you come up with, the more chances you have of finding a really unique name. But it is really important here that you play devil's advocate with the names that you've come up with. Don't just settle for a name. Remember, this is the business, this is the brand that you want to go on and be successful. So it might take a few hours. As I said, it might take a few days, but the name is so really, really important. So really give it the time that it deserves and really put it through that quality check and ask the question, is it really memorable? Is it really distinctive? Would I choose this name for my brand, and is this going to be memorable in 5 or 10 years time? Step number 6, check availability. Now, this can be a bit heart-wrenching because if you put so much time and effort to come up and find a really, really unique brand name, and then you go and check on Google and you realize that somebody has it, it can tear the heart out of you if you put so much time into it. But unfortunately, it's what you need to do. You need to check whether or not it's available. There's no point in pushing ahead with a brand name if somebody else in your space has that. So check availability, check if the URL is available, check if the social handles are available, and check if the trademark is available as well. And step number 7, apply your brand name in the real world. So take the name that you've selected and put it side by side with some of the biggest brands in the world. Put it side by side with Apple and with Nike and ask, does this brand name hold water? Does it really feel unique in amongst these global brands? So take the time to put it into real world situations, put it into mission statements and value statements, maybe some messages, some social posts, and really get a feel for how that brand name sounds, how it sounds rolling off the tongue, how it sounds within messages, so you can really quality test the name and see if it feels like it would survive in the real world. Now, the reason I did this video today is because I was going through this exact process today. I was going through my own brand naming process for a brand that I'm working on, and it took me longer than I hoped, and it usually does. It usually takes me a long time to come up with a really good brand name because I don't settle for the first name, and I really try to push as many viable options as possible, and that's what I did today. And after hours upon hours upon hours coming back to the same names over and over again, I landed on a name that was truly unique, and it was so simplistic. It was just taking an existing word, slightly adjusting the spelling, and it sounds great. And the .com is available, so I'm really happy with it. Now, it hasn't been approved by the client yet. It's gone over to the client today, but I just wanted to talk through the fact that coming up with a brand name is not easy. Coming up with a really unique name takes time, and some of the best names in the world might look like they've been created in seconds, but it is the most simplistic names that take the longest to come up with. And if you're in graphic design, if you're in brand design, you'll be able to relate to this because it is the most simplistic logos that take the longest to come up with. If you present a logo that looks really, really easy, that it looks like somebody could have come up with it in seconds, chances are it took a long time to come up with that logo, because coming up with something so simplistic is deceptively difficult. So if you're naming a brand at the moment, whether it's your own brand or a client's brand, take the time to go through these 7 steps, push each one of them as far as you can go, and if you push hard enough, you might just come up with a brand name that'll make you go, yes, yes, did it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell as well. It'll let you know when we've got new videos coming out. If you want more actionable brand strategy tips and techniques like this, head on over to BrandMasterAcademy.com. Get yourself signed up for the list. It's free, and we keep some exclusive content for that list, and there's some really helpful resources on there as well, so get yourself involved. But I'd love to hand it over to you now. What is your brand naming process? Do you have one in place? Are there any steps that you can take from this process into your own process? Do you have any challenges when it comes to brand naming, or any questions at all? Let me know in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer all of those. Until next time, brand like a master, and I will see you in the next video.